Was rugby league better in the 80s than it is right now? Matty, you're first up.
No, the game has never been better than it is right now. Individually, the players are so much better. The skills are better. The attack of 2017 is better than ever. And I think we're moving away from a structured football. I think we're on the cusp of a really great era. The moment we get down to 6, I think things are about to explode. I really think in the game. However, there are certain things in the 80s, I think, as a whole, which really helped the game then. Number one, in the 80s, there were more depth at clubs because rugby union was an amateur game. So the very best rugby union players would come to rugby league. They would get brought across. The other game, the English game, was played in the winter. So the best of the best was always in the Winfield Cup, the NRL, as we call it now. But there are things we can learn from the 80s, Gus. The variables that existed in the game that don't now. So for one, in 2017, you can't strip if there's 2 in a tackle. In the 1980s, you go for it. Competitive scrums in the 80s, predictable scrums now. Third one, you could strike in the play the ball in the 80s. You know, try to rake the ball back or give it a kick. At the moment in the game, there is predictability in possessions which didn't exist in the 80s. I think there are certain things that we can tinker with in the game to make things a little less predictable. I would actually, for one, I'll just throw up now. The defence lines are so structured now at the moment. A little thing can make a big difference. We see that with the interchange going down from 10 to 8, where South Sydney were dominating, and yes, they've lost some players, but the move to 8 interchanges have really affected them. The other one is this: we've got a 40-20. I'd be bringing in a 50-20. Oh, and what that would ensure is the wingers almost have got to stay back the whole time. It would lead to more sideways ball movement.
Yep. Look, I'm going to disagree with my the prosecution, Your Honour, and go with the 80s, and I'll give a few examples. Obviously, today's athletes are far more superior, bigger, stronger, faster. But look, I back in the 80s, there was no interchange. I'll agree with Matty. Contested scrums, I love seeing them. Tina Turner. Sand for kicks when you bring the sand out and put the ball on the tee
rather than the kicking tee.
Runarounds, halfback run around the 5'8" who pass the ball to 2 centres on the same side. There wasn't a centre on each side in a little corridor. Both second rowers would roam around the field, and it comes down to one ref. One referee back in the 80s.
No bunker.
No bunker. We saw a free-flowing game, and I miss that. I miss that. Every team was individual back in the 80s. Today you could say that 14 out of the 16 teams, if you swap jerseys with them, you wouldn't recognise which team it was.
Do you know, MG, what really I think helped the game in the 80s too and through the early to mid-90s is the fact that what we saw generally as a TV audience is the best game. We live in a more cynical age because we get the best game and then we get right down to the worst game. It was very rare that you sat down to watch the match of the round and it was an absolute bludger because, they handpicked the game, I think only a week or two before and said, right, you're going to play, you're playing on the Sunday, you got the match of the round, and they were the best of the best teams. It was very rare that you sat down, have dinner on a Sunday night and you watch 14th versus 15th.
And that gives us you're right.
Big game.
Well, kind of when we back in the day, you'd hear about this kid coming through Canberra.
Yeah,
his name was Brad Clyde, and you go, everyone kind of would build him up and build him up and build him up, and we wouldn't see him play on TV for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden you'd see him in the flesh. You go, shit. I know. He's 18. Look at the size. And all of a sudden this monster was created without even seeing him.
Same with the 80s, MG. I kept hearing a bloke in same age as me, people saying there's a kid from Emu Plains called Fittler everyone's heard about. And it came because first I heard of him was in year 10. I was taught by a woman called Mrs. French who taught us at English. And her son played for the Balmain Tigers, and her husband, of course, was a massive rugby.
He was a winger centre, wasn't he, French?
And she said, my husband went to an Australian Schoolboys Carnival and saw a player that he believes is going to be the best player ever. And I said, what's his name? She said, it's Fittler. I went, right. And words started filtering out about this Fittler, and they say, mate, it's the best left foot you've ever seen, best left foot step. And the first time I saw him play, Australian Schoolboys versus Great Britain Schoolboys in 1989 at Newcastle. And he just tore the Great Britain Schoolboys to pieces. Yeah. And you went, okay, now I get it.
So now all these rookies we're seeing, the Kotricks, he'd be the same. You'd hear about this kid in Canberra.
Yeah. Now you see him for 3 years in the under-20s.
That's right. Young Cleary. You'd hear about this young Cleary coming through.
You used to watch the Commonwealth Bank Cup for the juniors, right? So that was, listening to that. But I love watching the under-20s now. But I miss the under-23s, the reserve grade and the first grade, just as a fan. Going to the game at 11:30 and knowing you're going to be there till 6.
People these days, the football fan now is more educated on what I would say good football and smart football and what's dumb football. And I'll give you an example. In the mid-'80s, I went watching an Origin back, and the Queensland side had going through the hands, coming off their own line, and Mal threw a ball that just went over the touchline. Now, in the modern age, we'd be talking about that for 2 or 3 days, like the Haynes flick, going, how dumb was that? That was stupid. It wasn't even raised. It was like, oh, and the ball goes over and they pat the scrum. It's going to be the New South Wales head and feed. And it just moved on.
I'll tell you one bugbear that's in the game today that wasn't back in the 80s is when someone makes a mistake, the whole 13 run across and pat him on the head.
I still don't get that.
Stick the hand up and say that was my fault.
What is that?
I know.
You'd be going, you idiot.
I know blokes.
You idiot.
There was a certain standard, MG, which I agree. Everything these days is so softly, and be really careful, mate. Be so mindful of people. Back in the day, if you made an error, coming out of trouble, or just made a stupid mistake, mate,
get back on your wing,
mate.
Did you guys used to hurt at the end of games too? That's my other bugbear at the moment. Is they all seem to be such great mates that you can get beaten or a real tight game, and they're all giving each other big man hugs at the end. Did you guys walk off and then join each other after
you've
had your moment?
After a shower, you go out the back and you either go to Newcastle.
You had to be so careful, OMG.
Yeah.
You had to be so careful around your coach and your teammates about how you took a loss. Like Alan McMahon, the Knights coach, he used to watch guys in the lower grades right through to see how the reaction to a loss. And if you would walk up to an opponent and he saw you laughing on the field and give him like a high five and a bit of a man hug, oh, mate, I got no doubts that Macca would drag you in and just tear strips off you.
Yeah, thanks, boys. So it's a bit 50-50.
Well, let us know what you think.
The Grill Team, Gus, MG, and Matty Johns.